What if I told you that the name you were never meant to have could become the key to your freedom? A nurse's casual comment, a mother's desperate plea, and suddenly a shadow self was born. I'm Judi Bommarito, and this is the story of Jacqueline, the name my mother wished for me, the identity that became my inner critic, and the journey that ultimately led to both our healing. But this story doesn't end how you might expect, because sometimes the person you've spent a lifetime trying to escape is the very one who holds the answer you've been searching for. Let our journey begin. The mother figure, often excluded from the fairy tale. It is believed that if the mother were alive, the protagonist would not be in the described predicament. For a mother is born with an innate instinct to do whatever necessary to protect her young. As long as memory serves, my mother suffered from an undiagnosed mental illness. She was well into her 60s when she had her first psychotic breakdown. Now her illness had a name: schizophrenia. Understandably, I grew up with an emotionally absent mother. Her own voice, smothered by the demands of the other voices, growing louder in her head. This experience forms the foundation of my series, Releasing Jacqueline. To navigate this complex and deeply personal story, I have drawn upon Joseph Campbell's heroine's journey as a guiding framework. Every hero's journey begins in an ordinary world, but mine was anything but ordinary. A mother whose mind was crowded with voices that weren't her own, a daughter desperate to be seen. Campbell tells us every hero receives a call to adventure. Mine came wrapped in a name I never wanted. Jacqueline, the name chosen for me by my mother. While still in the hospital after giving birth, a random nurse told her the name was too long. Responding to her observation, my mother changed my name to Judith. Growing up, my mom begged me to change my name to Jacqueline. This name became synonymous with her weakness and my own inner critic. Names hold power. They shape how we see ourselves, how others see us. In Campbell's journey, the hero often receives a talisman, an object of power. But what happens when the talisman is something you've been running from your entire life? On the outside, Jacqueline led an average middle-class life, but inside, the story was different. Her mother was often immobilized by the dark veil of depression, made worse by self-medication with alcohol. For years, I refused the call to face my past, to examine the relationship with my mother. The facade I built, the distance I placed between us, was my shield against a truth I wasn't ready to confront. Jacqueline learned to walk lightly and become small. She folded her body and took up less space, seeking safety under her bed or in a closet. She did her best to become invisible. When we make ourselves small, we're not just hiding from others, we're hiding from ourselves. This is the threshold guardian in Campbell's journey, the fear that keeps us from crossing into the unknown. Sticks and stones may break my bones, and names will always hurt me. When Jacqueline's mother drank, she became mean and argumentative. Her mother's harsh words cut deep, yet her voice held no authority. Jacqueline built a wall and promised herself she would never be weak like her. The walls we build to protect ourselves often become our prisons. This is the crossing of the first threshold in Campbell's journey, the moment we step into the unknown world and faced our first true challenges. My enemy wasn't my mother. It was the belief that her weakness would become mine. Jacqueline had always felt different, refusing to believe the stories of gloom her mother would tell. She longed for love, knowledge, and joy. Knowing that all these things exist, she set out to find them. This is the stage of tests, allies, and enemies. The quest begins in earnest. For me, it was the search for something beyond my mother's limited vision, a belief that there was more to life than what she could see. In Campbell's journey, the hero gathers tools and allies. My tools were my camera, my art, and my stubborn belief that beauty existed somewhere outside the darkness of our home. As seasons changed and years passed, Jacqueline's journey remained endless and bleak. She was always searching for something she could never find. Then a series of pivotal events thrust her into the role of her mother's caregiver. Unknowingly, they began to collaborate on something bigger than both of them. This marked the beginning of a symbiotic relationship that ultimately led to their healing. The approach in the inmost cave in Campbell's journey is where the hero prepares for the central ordeal. For me, that came when I became my mother's caregiver. I picked up my camera, not knowing that the simple act of photographing her would become our shared language, the conversation we would never have with words. Jacqueline sat beside her mother in the darkness. When she gave in and embraced this space, only then was she able to understand that her mother's longing for love and acceptance was no different than her own. The ordeal is the central moment of the hero's journey, the confrontation with our deepest fear. Mine came in the stillness of sitting with my mother, no longer running, no longer hiding. In that shared darkness, I found the most profound truth of all. Beneath her illness, beneath my resentment, we wanted the same thing: to be seen, to be loved, to be accepted. Jacqueline struggled under the immense weight of it all, but she refused to sink into silence, clinging to the one thing that could save her: her own voice. It was here that she found the strength to speak the words her mother could not find. After the ordeal comes a reward, the prize the hero has fought for. Mine wasn't what I expected. It wasn't freedom from my past, but the voice to speak it. The photographs became the way to articulate what had always been unspeakable between us. In Campbell's journey, this is the moment of revelation, when the hero claims the sword, the elixir, the treasure. My treasure was my voice. The time had come to return home. Jacqueline is no longer small. She learned that it is okay to unfurl her body and take up more space. She now understands the lesson her mother unwittingly taught her. She has given Jacqueline the voice she never had, made her brave, and most importantly, taught her to forgive. The road back in Campbell's journey is the beginning of the return. The hero must bring the treasure back to the ordinary world. For me, this meant integrating what I had learned, allowing myself to expand, to be seen, to forgive both my mother and myself. What once seemed dark and dreadful now returns to life, the day the falling leaf chose to fly. The resurrection is the final test. The hero must be transformed by their journey, reborn in some fundamental way. I had begun by trying to release Jacqueline, to free myself from the name and the critic it represented. But in the end, I didn't release her. I became her. I reclaimed her. The falling leaf that chose to fly is all of us who have been told we are small, we are weak, we are broken, and who choose instead to soar. Joseph Campbell teaches us that the hero doesn't just return with the treasure, they return with the elixir, a gift that can heal their community. My elixir isn't a prescription or a solution. It's simply this story, these images, this testimonial that healing is possible, even across the seemingly impenetrable barriers of mental illness, resentment, and lost time. The true hero's journey isn't about slaying dragons. It's about turning to face the parts of ourselves we've been running from, and discovering what we feared most might hold the key to our freedom. How will you become the hero in your own story? What name have you been running from? What relationship feels beyond repair? Remember, the journey begins with a single step. For me, it was picking up the camera. For you, it might be picking up a pen, making a phone call, or simply allowing yourself to sit in the uncomfortable silence with someone you've misunderstood. Share in the comments one simple step you'll take today on your own hero's journey. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to join me on this ongoing exploration of healing through art. The most powerful stories we can tell are the ones we've lived ourselves. Thank you.